Chapter 29. Let's go to a place to have fun. Bei Yunji's leisurely voice made Mr. Qin's expression darken quickly. Originally, Bei Yunji was only bad at her studies and had flaws in her personality, but it was not that serious. But she was not as unrestrained as she was now. She was simply stubborn. Bei Yunji, I don't expect you to be as sensible and smart as Yo Jiao, but can't you be obedient? Mr. Qin was furious. Qin Yojiao, who was beside him, saw this scene and the smile on her lips faded slightly. It was also her first time seeing Mr. Qin angry. At this moment, Bei Yunji had already walked far away. She did not know if she had heard Mr. Qin's last sentence. The child isn't raised by her side. She doesn't seem like a family member after all. Mrs. Qin scooped a bowl of soup and handed it to Qin Yojiao. When she was about to scoop a second bowl for Qin Lang, she saw Qin Lang put down his chopsticks and walk out. Mrs. Qin's expression changed. Qin Lang, where are you going? I'm looking for my sister. Qin Lang put on a baseball cap to cover his handsome face and said mockingly. These words made Mrs. Qin's expression change again. Qin Lang. Qin Lang ran into the darkness outside the door without looking back. It was only then that Mrs. Qin realized that Qin Yojiao had really changed when she said that Qin Lang had changed. In Yu's bar, the atmosphere in the private room was ambiguous as the guests laughed with their arms around the women's waists. Only a man with a lazy posture had his long legs crossed and his back leaning against the sofa loosely. He was holding a cigarette between his fingers. It was as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. At this moment, many women were secretly sizing up the man who made their hearts race not far away. However, because of his indifferent expression, they did not dare to go forward. Master Du, do you really not want someone to serve you? The CO smiled with countless wrinkles on his face as he said flatteringly. But that's it. A few women couldn't help but look over, wanting to be chosen. Take care of yourself. Hoshidu's tone was cold. Instantly, the CEO's scalp turned numb and he did not dare to say anything. And because of this master, the people around did not dare to play too much. Hoshidu glanced at the watch on his wrist, planning to go back in half an hour. Today, if the old madam had not guarded his house for the entire day, he would not have sat here in the middle of the night. Suddenly, the door of the private room was pushed open. A drunk young man came in with a woman in his arms. Just now, I saw a very pretty girl outside. Do you want to come with me to take a look? The man looked all right, but the dark circles under his eyes were not shallow. At first glance, it was obvious that he had done too much. However, no one dared to say anything. She was afraid that the master beside her would find it too noisy. Then I'll go by myself. He smiled maliciously, pushed the woman in his arms away, and walked out. At this moment, Hoshidu received a message from Qinyu. Master Du, are you still at Muse? My sister seems to have gone in, but my family can't find her. Can you check the surveillance cameras for me? Qinyu, who was overseas, had a dark expression and was burning with anxiety. He only wanted to return to the country as soon as possible. He really didn't expect Ger to be so bold as to enter a bar. At this moment, after reading the message, the man stood up abruptly and walked out. Master Du, where are you going? At the bar counter. Bei Yunji ordered a cocktail with ease and sat by the bar counter to watch the performance. She rested her chin on one hand, her eyes lazy and bright. When she raised her eyebrows, she looked charming. Instantly, it attracted the attention of many people in the bar. Chapter 30. At the same time, Lu Yuanxi, who had just come to have fun with his friends, looked up and saw this scene with a cold expression. Bei Yunji's upturned eyes seemed to be smiling. She casually raised her glass to the performer on the stage. She stared at her without moving her eyes and drank it bit by bit. Seeing this, the hot dancers on the stage inexplicably felt their heartbeats quicken and their faces heat up. The people who were cheering enthusiastically below the stage did not notice anything unusual at all. This young lady is too good. Both men and women? This is the first time I've seen her. Lu Yuanxi's friends looked at Bei Yunji and sighed. But just because of this face, he also wanted to swim into his sister's fish pond. However, Liu Enxi's face darkened. It seemed that his deskmate's private life was even more promiscuous than his. He actually believed Bei Yunji's nonsense about looking for a part-time job. But she looks a little familiar. Brother Liu, do you think? Before his friend finished speaking, Liu Enxi turned around and left. Hey, Brother Liu. Why didn't you wait for me? At the bar. After the woman got off the stage, she walked to Bei Yunji's side and smiled sweetly. Miss, if you're alone, can I sit here? She looked at Bei Yunji with great interest. Actually, for someone like her who had been in the entertainment industry for several years, she was already immune to good looks. But when she first saw this person in front of her, she automatically came to a conclusion in her mind. She was too beautiful, but there was no warmth in her smiling eyes. She gave people a sense of the unknown, and people could not help but approach her curiously. You saw someone with a camera when you came in. Go change your clothes first. Bei Yunji did not even raise her head. Hearing this, the woman froze and touched the mask on her face. You recognized me? Your high voice is steady, your image is good, and your dancing skills are solid. Can't you be popular? Bei Yunji seemed to be casually looking for a topic to talk about. However, it hit the woman right where it hurt. She did come here to have a part-time job to find the right feeling. But so far, only 2 people knew her true identity. Yumanran couldn't help but turn his head away and randomly pick up the cigarette case. His slender fingers had just picked up a cigarette and was about to bring it to his lips. Unexpectedly, another hand suddenly took away her cigarette. Don't look back. Look at me. Bei Yunji's lazy voice sounded. Yumanran immediately froze. He knew what was going on. She subconsciously looked at Bei Yunji, only to see her supporting herself with one hand on the bar counter. Her eyes were filled with indifference. However, it was becoming more and more alluring. Her elegant fingers, which were holding the cigarette, seemed to be lazily caressing the woman's cheek. In reality, the person who was secretly taking photos of Yumanran was so angry that he almost fainted. Just now, he had clearly seen Yumanran wanting to smoke, but in the end, he had captured Yumanran's face being touched by another person who was holding a cigarette. Furthermore, this photo couldn't prove that it was Yumanran. Not long after, Bei Yunji returned the cigarette to Yumanran. However, Yumanran seemed to be afraid and threw the cigarette away. That was close. She was almost criticized by the entire internet. She didn't have a good relationship with the public. Be careful next time. After saying that, Bei Yunji put a few red notes under the wine glass and prepared to leave. However, when Yumanran saw this, he asked anxiously, Can you help me? She didn't know why, but she felt that Bei Yunji could help her. I'll give you money, Yumanran stammered. After saying that, she regretted it. Would this person in front of her misunderstand? Would he feel that she was humiliating her? Chapter 31. Who knew? The people who were about to leave stopped in their tracks. Bei Yunji looked at her and said, Sure. Yumanran, was she so honest? Not long after they finished chatting, Yumanran left. Bei Yunji had just come out of the washroom when she saw 3 to 4 men leaning against the dark corridor not far away. She took out a tissue, wiped her hands, and prepared to leave. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the other side. Miss, why are you leaving? Aren't you going to stay and play with us? A few men's ear-piercing laughter rang out with ill intentions. Bei Yunji looked up and saw someone blocking her way. You can leave if you want, but can you light a cigarette for our young masterling first? Hearing that, Bei Yunji's gaze landed on the person beside her who looked like a rich man. At this moment, that man who was called young masterling was also sizing her up unscrupulously. He really did not expect that Muse would send such a stunner. Light a cigarette? Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows slightly. Her smile did not reach her eyes, but in the eyes of others, it was flirtatious. Sure. After that, Bei Yunji took out a cigarette from the cigarette box. Without waiting for anyone to react, she picked up a lighter. In their eyes, it was even more unbearable for them to see this kind of behavior. It was rare to see such an obedient woman. Then tonight there would be fun. However, in the next moment, the girl in front of them suddenly squatted down, held up the cigarette butt, and casually lit it with the lighter. After a while, white smoke curled up. Seeing Bei Yunji's action, the few of them did not have time to hide their smiles. After that, she lowered her eyes and hid the faint coldness that appeared. They heard Bei Yunji's playful laughter. "Look at this smoke, doesn't it look like the incense in your graves?" In an instant, the smiles on their faces could not be maintained. Gradually, they became gloomy. "You don't know what's good for you, do you?" Young Master Ling looked at Bei Yunji sinisterly. Previously, he still wanted to dote on this woman. After all, she was so good-looking. He should play with her for a few more days. How boring would it be if he broke it at the beginning? But now, he saw that she just wanted to suffer more. "Yeah, I'm used to it. After all, it's been so many years." Bei Yunji stood up, flicked the lighter, and smiled calmly. When young Master Ling heard that, a sinister look flashed across his eyes as he sneered. "Did you hear that? Today, I'll teach her how to speak with her tongue." "Yes." They approached Bei Yunji step by step, sneering in their hearts. They didn't take Bei Yunji seriously at all. What kind of ability could a girl who looked like she was in her 20s have? However, just as someone reached out to cover Bei Yunji's mouth and nose first, in the next second, the other hand grabbed his collar even faster. Then, without waiting for anyone to react, that slender white hand suddenly pulled with all her might. The tall man had no choice but to bend over and look up at Bei Yunji with difficulty. You. The man's face was full of shock and fear, but he couldn't break free of her hand. And the few people beside him were so stunned that they didn't dare to go forward. "Idiots! What are you waiting for? Go and catch her." Young Master Ling's face was full of anger. Hearing that, their eyes flashed with fierceness again, and they rushed towards Bei Yunji. Bei Yunji let go of her hand, but she swiftly kicked the tall man's abdomen. He howled in pain, and his body couldn't help but lean back violently. Chapter 32. Seeing this, Bei Yunji chuckled and picked up her waist-length curly hair. She casually bit on a rubber band and tied it into a ponytail. Her beautiful eyes could not hide the arrogance and arrogance. "She's shouting just like that?" Instantly, the few of them felt the atmosphere become tense, but they did not know how to handle it. Usually, when they surrounded those girls, they had never failed. And they had never encountered such an extreme situation. "Let me tell you, I'm the young master of the Ling family. If you dare to mess around, do you believe that I'll make it impossible for you to survive here?" Young Master Ling's words were stern, but his heart was weak. Bei Yunji ignored him and walked straight towards them. "A bunch of good-for-nothings. Hurry up and protect me." Young Master Ling widened his eyes and roared angrily. He usually brought them to eat and drink well, but in the end, they could not even win against a woman. At this moment, someone gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go together." Hearing this, one of them silently took out a small knife from behind his waist. His eyes were filled with coldness. Then, just as the crowd swarmed forward, a voice rang out. He rushed forward, raised the dagger, and slashed towards Bei Yunji's face. Originally, from this angle, it should be very difficult for the girl to react quickly. But who knew? Bei Yunji suddenly turned her head and grabbed his hand. In the next moment, the crisp sound of bones breaking made everyone's scalp go numb. Following that, there was a shrill scream. "Ah!" Bei Yunji caught the falling knife steadily and suddenly smiled. "You guys are quite good at sending your heads to me." And when the others saw this scene, they found it difficult to breathe and felt cold all over. The person in front of them was definitely a devil. "Let me tell you, I know the boss of this bar too. If you dare to do anything to me, you definitely won't be able to walk out of this bar." Young Master Ling threatened fiercely, but his legs were already so weak that he could not stand straight. In reality, he was also afraid that this woman would want to kill him with no regard for her life. Was no one really coming to save him? His heart was in agony. At this moment, several bodyguards appeared at the entrance of the long corridor. "Young Master Ling, Master Du asked you to return to the private room and wait there." Hearing that, young Master Ling turned around abruptly and stared at them blankly. Master? Master Du? The bodyguard nodded expressionlessly. In fact, Master Du's original words were that Ling Jixuan couldn't leave the box before he found the person. Alright, I'll head back now. Even if he had to crawl, he would crawl back. Young Master Ling had just stood up when a dark glint flashed across his eyes. He suddenly said, "This woman wanted to harm me just now. Master Du asked you to come and find me. Can you help me get rid of her?" After that, a hint of smugness flashed past young Master Ling's eyes as he looked coldly at Bei Yunj. Sooner or later, he would get his revenge on this ungrateful woman. Hearing this, the bodyguard finally noticed Bei Yunj beside him. "Miss Yuar?" The bodyguard suddenly remembered that Master Du had asked everyone in the bar to look for a girl named Bei Yunj. "Is it Huashidu?" she suddenly asked. Hearing that, the bodyguard was stunned. For some reason, he felt that the person Master Du was looking for might be right in front of him. Yes. Then take him away. Bei Yunj was also willing to let him go. "Miss, what's your name?" The bodyguard could not help but ask. When Ling Jixuan saw that, he could not help but ask, "This woman almost killed me. Why are you asking for her name?" Chapter 33. Why are you asking this? Didn't I ask you to take her away? After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she calmly threw away the knife and prepared to leave. But she did not want to. Before she left the dark corridor, she saw the handsome and noble man in front of her. Their gazes met. Bei Yunj, she was still caught red-handed. Bei Yunj did not know why, but she felt that it was not good to meet this man in a bar. Huashidu's eyes were dark and his emotions could not be distinguished. "Master Du," Ling Jixuan was overjoyed, but before he could speak. After that, the man chuckled and walked towards the girl with his slender legs under his suit pants. His well-defined hand stretched out lazily from his trouser pocket. He tapped her forehead as a punishment. "Who agreed to let you come here, little girl?" When this scene fell into the eyes of the others, they were extremely shocked. Master Du knew this girl. Instantly, Ling Jixuan's underlings could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. What if Master Du found out that they were planning to do something to this girl? "I'm 19. Bei Yunj subconsciously retorted. "University?" The man lowered his pale-colored eyes and asked unhurriedly. Until now, Bei Yunj had just digested the fact that she was a repeater. Huashidu's gaze swept across Ling Jixuan and the others. After a while, Bei Yunj heard a voice above her head. It was low and magnetic, making her ears itch. "Wait first, I have something to settle." In the private room, Ling Jixuan swallowed his saliva and knelt by the sofa with weak legs. He had long sobered up. He was waiting for that person to deal with him personally. He really did not expect that this woman would have anything to do with Master Du. Otherwise, he would not dare to do this. Not long after, the door of the private room was opened and a strong white light appeared in front of his eyes. He saw a slender and noble man in a shirt and suit pants walking towards him unhurriedly. Huashidu looked at Ling Jixuan, who was kneeling in front of him with a face full of fear. "Master Du, I really didn't know that she was your woman. If I knew, I definitely wouldn't want to touch her." Ling Jixuan hurriedly raised his head to explain, only to see the tall and straight man in front of him raise his hand unhurriedly. He flicked the cigarette ash on his head. Ling Jixuan didn't dare to dodge and let the man use his head as an ashtray. Huashidu said casually, "You want to touch her?" When Ling Jixuan heard this, he was almost scared to death. He shook his head frantically, his voice trembling and miserable. "Master Du, I wouldn't dare. For my father's sake, can you give me a chance? I promise that if I see that young lady in the future, I will take a detour." At this moment, the atmosphere was so oppressive that it suffocated him. He only felt fear. "You're lucky. The little girl is still waiting outside." Huashidu's words stunned Ling Jixuan for a moment before he heaved a sigh of relief. However, his body was filled with fatigue because of the tension just now. However, in the next moment, the man bit on the cigarette with a casual expression. As he puffed out the smoke, the mouth of the cigarette turned scarlet. The smell was slightly cold and choking. Then, he held the cigarette loosely between his fingers and suddenly raised his hand to press the scarlet cigarette butt on Ling Jishuan's shoulder. Instantly, the scalding temperature directly burned his skin. The smell of burnt flesh wafted out. Ugh. Chapter 34. Ling Jishuan was in extreme pain. He wanted to hide but did not dare to. Even though his entire body was trembling in pain, he had no choice but to endure it. Huashidu chuckled, his pale-colored eyes cold. He said nonchalantly, "I don't want the little girl to be afraid of me. Get lost." In another private room, Bei Yunj looked at the fruits and milk on the table and could not help but doubt the authenticity of this bar. She walked to the door. "Where's your master Du?" Bei Yunj planned to return the money from last time before leaving. Master Du should still be dealing with it. The bodyguard said respectfully, "Miss, please wait a little longer." "What's there to deal with at the bar?" Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. The bodyguard glanced at Bei Yunj and hesitated. In the end, he only said, "Miss, what else do you want to eat? I'll bring it for you." "No need, I'll wait a little longer." Bei Yunj had just finished speaking when she saw Huashidu walking over from not far away. "Brother, the things you gave me before." Before Bei Yunj could finish speaking, Huashidu interrupted her. "Little girl, I'll give you a suggestion." Bei Yunj reacted. "What suggestion?" Huashidu smiled and threw away the cigarette in his hand. "Come with me." It was raining at night. Bei Yunj sat in the car and narrowed her beautiful eyes. She could not help but think that something was wrong. She was indeed quite happy to leave with him. She did not have to face that annoying family. But this man did not seem like someone who liked trouble. "I'll stay for a few days and wait for the dormitory application to be approved. I won't cause you any trouble." Bei Yunj added, "I can pay the rent according to the market price." The handsome and noble man looked up and smiled faintly. "Do you think my house is a hotel?" Before Bei Yunj could think of what to say, she heard him ask, "How long have you not slept?" Huashidu saw that her eyes were red like a rabbit. "I don't remember." Bei Yunj was used to it. In her previous life, she often had insomnia and many dreams. The doctor said that if her brain's capacity was too large, it would be easier to damage her foundation. If this continued, he wouldn't be able to live long. However, Bei Yunj felt that it was enough for her to live until she was 40 or 50 years old. "It's a bit congested, so I'll sleep on the way." Hearing him say this, Bei Yunj agreed casually, but she didn't think she could fall asleep. However, before she could close her eyes, she heard the man's deep voice. "Come here, Yunyun." It was probably the first time Bei Yunj had heard someone call her that. She was stunned for a moment. The man wasn't in a hurry either. He just curved his thin red lips and patted his straight and ascetic long legs under his black suit pants. "Big brother will give you a pillow." Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched and she laughed again. "I don't think it's a good idea." "There's nothing bad about it as long as you don't take advantage of me." The man's eyes were faint, but the corners of his eyes were tilted up. His face was not red and his heart was not beating fast. Seeing that Huashidu was staring straight at her, Bei Yunj sat down without any psychological burden and leaned against the man's firm long legs. However, Bei Yunj, who had only planned to pretend to be asleep, felt sleepy for the first time after smelling the faint and pleasant fragrance on Huashidu's body. Her beautiful red eyes slowly drooped down. Seeing this, a subtle smile flashed across the man's eyes. Then he remembered and picked up his phone. He sent a message. "Found her. I brought her back first." Chapter 35. He lowered his cold eyes and his gaze landed on Bei Yunj carelessly. For a moment, he couldn't figure out why he brought her home. When he first saw her, he only thought that she was a pitiful little kitten. She pretended to be obedient and liked to scratch people. She was interesting, but he didn't want to be implicated. Ever since he had dealt with that Ling guy, he had changed his mind. This little girl was too good-looking. If Qin Yu's family couldn't control her, she would be led astray sooner or later. Huashidu hid the darkness in his eyes and the corners of his lips curled up. "Forget it." He rubbed his fingers against her cheek gently. "Good night, Yunyun." In the bar, Qin Lang was still looking for someone, feeling anxious and uneasy. At this moment, Qin Yu called. "How is it? Have you contacted your friend?" Qin Lang asked impatiently. "He's already taken her away." Qin Yu added, "The person I told you about last time." "Where is he?" Qin Lang asked immediately. "I think he just left." Before Qin Yu could finish speaking, Qin Lang ran out of the bar with his phone tightly in his hand. "Mr. Qin? Where are you going?" Qin Lang heard the voice behind him, but he didn't turn back and ran out of the bar. It was only when he saw a Lincoln limousine drive away that his eyes flickered. The boy's usually arrogant short silver hair was wet and stuck to his face in a sorry state. The rain slid down his cheeks. His eyes were slightly red as he stared into the distance where the car had disappeared. His fists were clenched tightly. His heart was empty and painful. After arriving, the moment the car door opened, the warmth inside was eroded by the cold water vapor. Only then did Bei Yunj wake up sleepily. She rubbed her eyes and only regained her senses after a while. Had she fallen asleep just now? "You're awake." Huoshida didn't expect Bei Yunj to wake up so quickly. From the looks of it, the little fellow probably hadn't slept for a few days. Bei Yunj didn't organize her words and asked without thinking, "Does brother sleep alone?" After asking, Bei Yunj suddenly felt that her question was quite hooligan. However, sleep was too tempting for Bei Yunj. At this moment, Huoshidu did not expect this young lady to be so direct. His gaze was deep and there was a mischievous glint in his eyes, but his lazy tone was drawn out. "Yun, you're an adult now. Control yourself." After entering Huoshidu's villa, Bei Yunj realized that it was more than twice the size of the Qin family's villa. However, the style was simple and elegant. From the exterior of the wall to the layout of the space, it was very comfortable. "What about Eris?" After Bei Yunj asked, she realized that Huoshidu was on the phone. "She's with Xiaomo in the old house." After Huoshidu finished speaking, he instructed the person on the other end of the line, "Make some hangover soup and send it over." After hanging up, he looked at Bei Yunj and said, "Drink the hangover soup before you sleep. You're not allowed to go to the bar next time." "All right." Bei Yunj replied absent-mindedly, but she was thinking about how to stay by Huoshidu's side for a longer time. Just now in the car, it could be said that it was the first time in more than 10 years that she had slept soundly. And it was all because of the man in front of her. So, the older maid who delivered the hangover soup walked into the hall. When she saw Bei Yunj, she was surprised. "Auntie, is this prepared for me?" Bei Yunj sat on the sofa and looked at her with her chin in her hand. Her eyes were curved. "I think so." Chapter 36. "Thank you, Auntie." After Bei Yunj took it, she lowered her head and drank it. "Miss, just call me Auntie Meow." Auntie Meow liked this girl very much at first sight. She looked very lively and was much more likable than those girls the old madam had chosen. "Auntie Meow, my name is Bei Yunj. You can call me Yunj." Auntie Meow immediately shook her head. "We can't mess with the rules. I'll call you Miss Yunj." Hearing this, Bei Yunj didn't insist. And Auntie Meow didn't expect Master Du to bring a girl home. She secretly thought that she had to report this to the old madam quickly. The next day, Hungda, Year 2 Class 7. The teacher on the podium was furious. "Lu Yuanxi, are you getting more and more unruly? You didn't wear your school uniform and didn't bring your homework?" Lu Yuanxi didn't care. Instead, he looked out of the door and wondered why that person hadn't come yet. "Did you hear what I said? Is there a student who is more arrogant than you in this school?" With that said, a trace of impatience flashed past Lu Yuanxi's eyes. He turned around and was about to speak, but he heard a voice at the door. "Reporting." For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the door. They saw a girl with black hair, red lips, and snow-white skin standing lazily in a school skirt. Her beautiful eyes made people's hearts itch. However, the teacher's attention had always been sharp. "A transfer student?" The teacher took a deep breath. "Where's your bag?" Bei Yunj thought for a moment and said honestly, "I forgot to bring it." Everyone was speechless. The person in front didn't bring her homework and wasn't wearing her school uniform. This person didn't even bring her bag to school. Each one was wilder than the other. Bei Yunji's bag was in the Qin family. Indeed, she couldn't go to get it early in the morning, but she couldn't be bothered to explain so much. Okay, I think your class 7 is really a backdoor class. The teacher was burning with anger. Teacher, can a transfer student replace our class? Ling Jiwei, who had a feud with Bei Yunji before, said with a strange smile, can we stop the school from inserting someone into our class? That's right. I heard that the high school in Jiangpu district doesn't have a good spirit. The undergraduate rate is not even 40%. Another girl chimed in, her tone arrogant and superior. They had always looked down on students with poor grades and poor family backgrounds. So what if Bei Yunji is related to the Qin family? Was her surname Qin? Why was a poor relative of Qin Youjiao acting so arrogant in front of them? Do you think that if it weren't for your parents' generous resources, you would have been able to get into the university? The physics teacher asked expressionlessly. Immediately, the few of them wanted to say something but stopped. They could only shut their mouths angrily. The physics teacher had always been stubborn and did not care how rich the students were. Both of you, copy the key points of the physics textbook 3 times as punishment after class. Give it to me this week. The physics teacher was furious. In all his years of teaching, he had never seen such a mischievous student. All right. When Lu Yuanxi heard Bei Yunji's response, he could only frown and nod. However, then, the physics teacher realized that these 2 troublesome students were deskmates. Lu Yuanxi had forgotten to bring his physics book, while the other had brought nothing at all. They couldn't even read together. The physics teacher took a few deep breaths before facing them calmly. Find someone to read together. With that said, Lu Yuanxi's friends quickly asked him to sit over and read. Chapter 37. Lu Yuanxi frowned. None of the girls in the class seemed to be on good terms with Bei Yunji. Just as he was about to pass the book to Bei Yunji, he heard her say carelessly, "Teacher, I'll just listen to you." Then, as soon as she said this, a chubby boy next to her spoke carefully. "Classmate Pei, do you want to read it with me?" Bei Yunji's eyes flashed and her gaze fell on him unhurriedly. Not long after, Bei Yunji sat beside him. "What's your name?" "My name is Chu Zhixing." The chubby boy looked shy. His face was chubby, but his eyes were not small and his nose bridge was high. He was fair and tender and wore a clean school uniform. He did not leave a good impression at all. "It's quite nice." Bei Yunji curled her lips and replied, "My name is Bei Yunji." Chu Zhixing was stunned for a moment. His heart was inexplicably touched and his eyes were sore. Bei Yunji knew that he knew her name, but this was just a self-introduction out of respect. For so many years, he had almost never been treated fairly and respectfully. This seemingly unruly person in front of him had become the first person to treat him as an equal. Chu Zhixing hid the darkness in his eyes. At the same time, Ling Jiwei, who was originally prepared to laugh at Bei Yunji, had an ugly expression on her face. She glanced at Chu Zhixing viciously. She sneered. This damn fatty actually dared to interfere in her affairs. Last night, she had already warned everyone in the class in the private class group not to be nice to Bei Yunji. Who would have thought that there would still be someone who didn't know what was good for them to interfere? After class, someone told her that her school bag had been sent to the security room and asked her to go over and get it. Unexpectedly, Bei Yunji had just come back with her bag when she bumped into Lu Yuanxi on the way. Don't walk too close to Chu Zhixing. There's something wrong with this person. Lu Yuanxi frowned. He had seen Chu Zhixing secretly injecting drugs in the toilet before. Although it did not seem to be illegal drugs, it was really as the rumors said, Chu Zhixing was a monster. Really? Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows and smiled, but no one knew what she was thinking. Seeing this, Lu Yuanxi wanted to continue speaking but stopped himself. Was he crazy? Why do you care about Bei Yunji? This woman would not listen to him at all. Lu Yuanxi said expressionlessly and left. Bei Yunji was about to go back to the classroom after getting some water in the corridor. But suddenly, he heard a painful whimper from the corner. Damn fatty, Are you the only one who dares to meddle in other people's business? It was Ling Jiwei's voice, sharp and mean. I didn't see you so bold in the past, but now you've learned how to be a hero saving a damsel in distress? At this moment, Bei Yunj soon found out who might have been beaten up. She stopped in her tracks and quickly turned to the corner. At the blind spot of the surveillance camera, the chubby boy was covered in dirty water. Other than Ling Jiwei and the other two girls, there were a few other boys beside him who were kicking Chu Zhixing with all their might. He looked thin and tall, like a gangster. Let me go. The chubby boy's face was abnormally pale, as if he was suffering some kind of pain. He frowned and broke out in a cold sweat. Sure. Son, kneel down and admit your mistake, and I'll let you go. How about that? The skinny monkey-like boy deliberately mocked and humiliated him. He did not forget to add another kick to his foot. Chu Zhixing was in so much pain that his entire body trembled. Look at this fat pig. He's trembling so much that his flesh is moving. Chapter 38. The skinny monkey-like boy took out his phone and aimed it at Chu Zhixing. Come, look over here, fat pig. He smiled as he filmed and patted Chu Zhixing's head from time to time. I'm talking to you. However, Chu Zhixing's entire body was trembling as uncontrollable ruthlessness and gloominess appeared in his eyes from time to time. A voice kept echoing in his mind. Kill them. Kill them and everything would be fine. He should send these bastards to hell. Just as Chu Zhixing's eyes turned colder and the corners of his lips were about to curl up, suddenly, a familiar voice sounded by his ear. What are you doing? The evil and madness in Chu Zhixing's eyes dissipated instantly and he turned his head instinctively. Ling Jiwei and the rest also turned their heads instinctively. You still dare to come? I haven't settled the score with you for what happened last time. Ling Jiwei laughed coldly with a dark expression. Are you the one who bullied Wei Wei? The leading boy's eyes landed on Bei Yunj with ill intentions. He was indeed good-looking and even Qin Youjiao could not compare to him. Bei Yunj walked past him and stopped beside Chu Zhixing, glancing at him, who was in a terrible state. Who did this? Bei Yunj asked, pretending to be calm. Little girl, don't bother about seniors' matters. The boy had one hand in his pocket and the other holding his phone as he continued to film Chu Zhixing's face. But in the next second, a slender and fair hand suddenly snatched his phone away. You dash. The boy could not react for a moment. Bei Yunj casually glanced at the video the boy had recorded. With a light flick of her fingers, she opened his photo album. There were all kinds of videos inside. It was not only Chu Zhixing's, but also other people's. You're quite good at playing. Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes curled up and the ruthlessness in his eyes grew bit by bit, but his smile was beautiful. The boy, who did not notice at all, happened to see Bei Yunj's smile. His heart itched and he was about to reach out and put his hand on Bei Yunj's shoulder. In the next second, the sound of the phone falling to the ground was not soft. Before the boy could react, he saw Bei Yunj stepping on it carelessly. The crisp sound of the phone breaking stunned everyone. What are you doing? The boy's face quickly darkened. Who did you want to kneel just now? Bei Yunj asked. The boy's face gradually turned ferocious and he sneered, You dare to meddle in my business? Kneel. Bei Yunj looked up and glanced at Chu Zhixing. Of course someone has to kneel. You're only scared now? How dare you smash my new phone? Even if you want it? The boy gritted his teeth and didn't have time to finish his sentence. The girl in front of him suddenly curled her lips and smashed the glass in her hand onto the ground. The glass shards shattered into pieces, making one's heart tremble. What's the hurry? Not a single one of you will be missing today. Bei Yunj licked her rosy lips, looking cynical. Under the sunlight, her ink-black eyes sent chills down one's spine. Ling Jiwei subconsciously retreated in fear. However, when the boy looked at the girl whose wrist was so thin that it seemed like it would break with a twist, he couldn't help but laugh wantonly. Little girl, you're so awesome? After laughing, he looked at Bei Yunj disdainfully and said, Wei Wei, just watch from the side and see how Brother Qian will help you vent your anger. Hearing this, Ling Jiwei's expression softened. Brother Qian, don't worry. The school won't find trouble with you. Ling Jiwei's words were vague, but she clearly told him that it didn't matter if he crippled Bei Yunj. Chapter 39. Is that so? Then today, the things that can be filmed will be even more exciting. The boy stared at Bei Yunj gloomily, and his laughter made people uncomfortable. Chu Zhixing immediately panicked. He, a boy, felt humiliated to be filmed like this. Not to mention Bei Yunj, a girl. Student Pei, hurry up and leave. Chu Zhixing gritted his teeth and held his abdomen as he insisted. When the boy heard this, his face was full of violence. This fat pig really dared to interfere. I think you're really King courting death. The boy turned his head and raised his fist, punching Chu Zhixing's cheek. But then, just as Chu Zhixing subconsciously closed his eyes and waited for the pain to come, he didn't feel any movement for a long time. After a while, Chu Zhixing's eyelids moved and he narrowed his eyes tentatively. He saw Bei Yunj holding the boy's arm with one hand. Chu Zhixing wasn't the only one who was shocked by this scene. Even the boys and Ling Jiwei beside him had their smiles frozen on their faces. He borrowed my book. Are you going to hit him in front of me? A second ago, Bei Yunj was still smiling as if she was discussing with someone. The next second, she suddenly grabbed the back of the boy's collar. She dragged him into a blind spot as if she was dragging a bag of trash. The boy's face turned red as his collar tightened. He struggled desperately, but it was to no avail. The next moment, he was thrown against the wall, and his bones made muffled sounds. Brother Qian. A few of his underlings immediately wanted to go forward, but then they saw Bei Yunj punch Brother Qian in the face. Her movements were clean and neat, but her eyes were fierce and ruthless. Do you know what happens to trash? Bei Yunj asked lightly. However, the people around felt their hair stand on end. You need to be taught a lesson. You. The boy was in so much pain that his brain was spinning, but before he could finish speaking, Bei Yunj raised her knee and slammed it into the boy's abdomen. Ah! The boy bent down in pain, trembling as he clutched his stomach. Stand properly. Bei Yunj's tone was lazy. This was really the first time she had encountered someone who made people stand still and take a beating. The boy was obviously afraid of this ruthless person. He endured the pain and slowly straightened his back. Pei, classmate Pei, please take your classmate away. I promise I won't look for him again. Sorry for the trouble. Wait for him to find a few more people outside the school. Do you have to kill this woman? Student Pei, forget it. Chu Zhixing couldn't help but say. He hated these people, but they were not worth Bei Yunj's punishment. Before the boy could heave a sigh of relief, he saw Bei Yunj's red lips curl up and her slender, fair hand gently patting his face. Kneel on your own, or do you need me to help you? When the boy heard this, his face turned pale. Bei Yunj, aren't you afraid of being kicked out of Hengde for doing this? Ling Jiwei's voice was anxious and sharp, and it even trembled a little. She really did not expect Bei Yunj to treat them this way. Don't worry, you're next. Bei Yunj glanced at her slowly and said in a cold voice. Ling Jiwei's heart suddenly turned cold. The next moment, Bei Yunj grabbed the boy's collar and said, You don't want to choose? I've already chosen for you. As soon as she finished speaking, Bei Yunj suddenly let go of the boy and kicked him in the back. The boy screamed and threw himself at the glass shards on the ground. There were not many shards, but there was still a piece that pierced the flesh of his thigh. Blood dyed the ground red. The boy's face was full of pain and he screamed again. My leg, my leg. Ling Jiwei's pupils shrank when she saw this scene. Chapter 40. Her pretty face was pale. Bei Yunj, how dare you make a move in school? It wasn't until Bei Yunj's gaze shifted to her that Ling Jiwei couldn't help but scream. My father is the vice president of a listed company. Bei Yunj, you can't touch me. At this moment, Bei Yunj had just raised her eyes, but before she could turn her head, she heard a weak hiss of pain beside her. She narrowed her eyes slightly and saw that Chu Zhixing's breathing was erratic. His face was abnormally pale, and he looked like he had a relapse. What's wrong with you? Bei Yunj turned around and walked to Chu Zhixing's side. Ling Jiwei and the others saw this and immediately ran away. But at this time, Bei Yunj didn't have the time to care about them. Chu Zhixing's eyes flickered and his pale lips moved. He wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't want Bei Yunj to think that he was a monster. Do you need medicine? An injection? Hearing this, Chu Zhixing's entire body stiffened. In fact, Bei Yunj had noticed at first glance that there were several needle holes on the inside of Chu Zhixing's elbow. I'll take you to the infirmary first. No! Chu Zhixing's voice was hoarse. He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Bei Yunj's eyes. Even his biological mother was afraid and distant when she saw him having a relapse. He gritted his teeth and endured it, but his eyes were bloodshot. His voice was so suppressed that it trembled. I'll be fine after resting for a while. Suddenly, Bei Yunj's faint voice sounded. You don't want me to kick you a few times to wake you up, do you? Chu Zhixing, if you're sick, then treat it. Do you understand? Who doesn't have illnesses and pains? Chu Zhixing paused and subconsciously raised his head to look at Bei Yunj. The girl in front of him only had her usual laziness and a little impatience on her face. She didn't have the fear and disgust that he saw in the eyes of others. She didn't treat him as a monster. Her impatience was real. She had originally scheduled a conference call with the people from the Computing Institute. Now she had stood them up. You have such a good temper, Chu Zhixing lowered his head and muttered. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. Can you get up? I can. Chu Zhixing nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. He tried his best to get up, but he almost fell. It was Bei Yunj who helped her up. Bei Yunj pondered in silence. She knew very well that she was the one who had caused this incident. I'm sorry. Chu Zhixing's expression was not very good, but when he reacted, he hurriedly shook his head. I was willing to lend it to you. You didn't force me. Bei Yunj glanced at him. A short while later, just when Chu Zhixing thought that Bei Yunj did not want to speak, he heard her speak again. Next time, you can look for me if you need anything. Hearing this, Chu Zhixing's eyes almost turned hot. He gritted his teeth and looked at her hopefully. Can I follow you in the future? Infirmary. Bei Yunj had just sent a text message to the Computing Institute when she walked to the door. Classmate, did you send classmate Chu here? The infirmary teacher was a young woman with neat bangs. She looked gentle and cute and wore glasses. Yes. Bei Yunj asked. Teacher, how's Chu Zhixing? His condition is very bad, but fortunately, you sent him here in time. The infirmary teacher was helpless. This child is actually quite pitiful. He's bullied every 2 to 3 days. Has he always been injected with drugs? He rarely comes to the infirmary because he's afraid of being seen. Bei Yunj was deep in thought. Chu Zhixing, who was sitting on the hospital bed, looked gloomy. He thought about how Bei Yunj had rejected him just now. Chapter 41. Was it because he was too weak that classmate Pei didn't want to get close to him? Are you hungry? Bei Yunj's voice sounded. Chu Zhixing looked up and saw Bei Yunj biting on a lollipop as she placed the snacks in the plastic bag in front of him. Thank you. Chu Zhixing was flattered. Bei Yunj's quiet eyes were lowered as if she was thinking about something. Chu Zhixing didn't dare to make a sound for a moment. Then she asked, Do you want me to protect you? Oh no. I can become stronger, and I can also protect classmate Pei. Chu Zhixing became less and less confident as he spoke. Bei Yunj's eyes darkened when she heard this. The corners of her lips slowly curled up, and she suddenly asked with interest, Do you know how to fight? Chu Zhixing's body stiffened, and he slowly lowered his head. Then how do you want to protect me? Bei Yunj smiled slowly. This wasn't the first time she heard someone say that he could protect her. However, she still felt a sense of anticipation that she hadn't felt in a long time. Back in the classroom, the class monitor asked Bei Yunj for her WeChat and invited her to join the class group. Only then did she remember this matter. She glanced at the WeChat account that the original owner used and chose to create a new account. After joining the group chat, Bei Yunj didn't pay much attention to it. Instead, she entered a phone number. A user with the nickname Du appeared. Seeing this, Bei Yunji's lips curled up a little and she exited the friend request. Her slender index finger tapped on the button to change the nickname. After thinking for a moment, she lazily entered a new name. Not long after, Group. The phone on the desk suddenly vibrated. Shidu picked up the phone without looking up. After opening the message, he opened his thin eyelids. His gaze fell lightly on the screen. Brother's little nightingale has requested to add you as a friend. After a while, Shidu's eyes were so dark that it was hard to tell. He lowered his voice and laughed. Child, you're lawless. In the afternoon, as expected, Bei Yunj was called to the office again. She pushed the door open and entered. She saw a mature and steady middle-aged man sitting on the sofa, chatting with the principal. Principal, are you looking for me? When Bei Yunj smiled, her eyes were especially clear. It was hard to imagine that she was a student who would hurt others. Did you injure Chen Qingjun? The principal asked with a solemn expression. Back then, the Qin family had donated a building to Hengda in order to get this student in. However, when he heard the gossip later, he realized that she was not an illegitimate daughter of the Qin family or a child of some relationship. She was just a poor relative who wanted to rely on the Qin family and insisted that the Qin family transfer her to another school. Bei Yunj replied. What do your parents do? The middle-aged man in a suit asked. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows slightly. I grew up in an orphanage. Hearing this, the middle-aged man couldn't help but laugh. He seemed to think that she was bold. Then do you know who Chen Qingjun is? The future successor of the Qian family company. Student pay, do you know the price you have to pay for your actions? The middle-aged man smiled with deep wrinkles, but his eyes were cold. Price? Bei Yunj asked. You want my son to kneel on the glass? I'll give you two choices. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. You can either be expelled or kneel on the glass. President Qian, this matter. The principal was also a little anxious. After all, the Qin family had donated a building. However, after President Qian glared at him, the principal could only shut up. Chapter 42. Class 1. Youjiao, does that poor relative of yours know? Someone ran towards Qin Youjiao excitedly. What? Qin Youjiao's eyes darkened. She beat up that Chen Qingjun. He's the rich young master who crippled a student and transferred to our school. The girl's tone was agitated. Qin Youjiao frowned. How is that possible? How could Bei Yunj beat Chen Qingjun? It's true. Now Chen Qingjun's father is here to settle scores with her. He's in the principal's office. A strange glint flashed past Qin Youjiao's eyes and the corners of her lips twitched. I'm going to the washroom. Qin Youjiao stood up and walked towards the door. At the end of the corridor, Qin Youjiao called Mrs. Qin. Mrs. Qin picked up the call quickly and said gently, Jiao Jiao, aren't you in school? What's wrong? Mom, something seems to have happened to Bei Yunj in school. After Qin Youjiao told Mrs. Qin what she had heard, Mrs. Qin fell silent. Why don't you come to school? I don't want others to think that you're not good to your biological daughter. Qin Youjiao acted obedient. Jiao Jiao, go to class first. Mom will think about it. With that said, Mrs. Qin hung up the call. However, Qin Youjiao laughed, certain that Mrs. Qin would come. Of course, she was not doing this for Bei Yunj's sake. She wanted Mrs. Qin to see the difference between her and Bei Yunj. With Mrs. Qin's personality, she would only hate Bei Yunj even more. In the Qin family's old manner, Mrs. Qin and Mr. Qin were on the phone. Her eyes were red and she broke down. I told you not to bring her back and just give her money. Look at how much face she has embarrassed me. Mr. Qin comforted her. Go and take a look first. I can't leave the company. I'm telling you. If she causes any more trouble for the family, I'll definitely chase her out. Mrs. Qin hung up the call and accidentally saw herself in the mirror. His face was filled with anger and disgust, causing her to be stunned. Pursing her lips, she picked up her bag and left. In the principal's office. Have you thought about it? Do you want to drop out of school or come back on your knees? Mr. Qian asked with a gloomy smile. If he hadn't seen with his own eyes how badly his son was injured, he would have thought that it was a prank. For so many years, no one had dared to treat his son like this. "Uncle, are you threatening me?" Pei Yunji's pretty eyes looked up, not showing any fear at all. Chairman Qian pursed his lips coldly. "If you don't choose either of them, then I can only—" Before he could finish his sentence, there was a knock on the door. Everyone turned around. They did not expect the person to be Mother Qin. "Mrs. Qin, why are you here?" The principal's eyelids twitched. He didn't expect Mother Qin to come in person. Could it be that this poor relative was very favored in the Qin family? When Mother Qin saw Bei Yunji's nonchalant expression, she became even angrier. She restrained her impulse, walked forward coldly, and grabbed Bei Yunji's arm. "Bei Yunj, do you not want to study at all? Do you want to be a good-for-nothing?" The temperature in Bei Yunji's eyes gradually dropped. "Mrs. Qin, please have some self-respect." Bei Yunj curled her lips into a half-smile and slowly pulled her hand away. Mother Qin saw this and couldn't help but laugh coldly. She was about to explode from Bei Yunji's stubborn attitude. "Mrs. Qin." Chairman Qian was also surprised when he saw Mother Qin. Didn't the student say that she grew up in an orphanage? Chapter 43. Mrs. Qin took a deep breath and adjusted her image back to that of an elegant lady. "President Qian." Mrs. Qin nodded slightly at President Qian. President Qian said, "This student is Mrs. Qin's." A trace of panic flashed past Mrs. Qin's eyes, but she forced herself to remain calm. "A girl I brought home some time ago." These words made Pei Yunj glance at her with a sneer, but she quickly looked away. Mrs. Qin had always doted on Qin Youjiao. She was even stronger than her other 3 brothers. Not to mention Bei Yunj, who came back halfway. Therefore, when Mr. Qin proposed to reveal Bei Yunji's identity, Mrs. Qin was the first to object. "I've heard about what happened between the two of you." Mrs. Qin took a deep breath and looked at Bei Yunj, saying expressionlessly, "If it's true, then let her bear the legal consequences." When she said this, Mrs. Qin kept staring at Bei Yunj. She was waiting for Bei Yunj to show weakness. Her hands were trembling. No matter what, this good-for-nothing person was her biological daughter. As long as Bei Yunj showed weakness, she would intervene and settle it. But in the future, she would transfer Bei Yunj to another school. She could not affect Jiao Jiao. At this moment, the door was suddenly kicked open. Qin Lang seemed to have run all the way here. He was panting and his short silver-gray hair was messy. "Where's Gu?" Qin Lang was called over by the principal. When he saw Mrs. Qin, he was also surprised. Mrs. Qin's expression was terrible. "Why you here?" Qin Lang's gaze gradually calmed down and he walked in front of Bei Yunj to face President Qian. "Do you have any evidence that Gu injured your son?" Qin Lang's tone was mocking and his handsome face was cold. "Qin Lang, shut up." Mrs. Qin's expression darkened. Qin Lang glanced at Mrs. Qin and snorted before he pulled Bei Yunji's hand. "Gu, let's go. Third brother will take you back." Qin Lang. Mrs. Qin's eyes were almost red. At this moment, Bei Yunj did not move and broke free from his hand. "I did," Bei Yunj said calmly. Qin Lang's body stiffened. It took him a while to react. Tears welled up in his eyes. Gu was already unwilling to forgive him. Even if she had to bear the consequences, Gu did not want to have anything to do with him. "Gu, don't be afraid. Third brother will protect you. I'm warning you, Qin Lang. You only have one sister, and she's in class 1. Mother Qin interrupted coldly. Suddenly, Mr. Qian said, "Since he's a relative of the Qin family, let's just treat it as a small fight. As long as this student is willing to apologize to my son and take a detour when he sees my son in the future, I will treat it as if nothing happened." Mrs. Qin's eyes flashed and she asked coldly, "Bei Yunj, do you admit your mistake?" "No need." Bei Yunj chuckled, and the corners of her bright red lips curled up. "Someone needs to drop out of school." "Good, good. Bei Yunj, you're really capable." Mrs. Qin was so angry that her head was spinning. How could she have given birth to such a person? Why couldn't she compare to Jiao Jiao? Student Pei, have you thought it through? Gloominess flashed across Mr. Qian's eyes as he hid a cold smile. There weren't many people who would be stupid at this juncture. However, it was best if he could avenge his son. Of course. Bei Yunj lowered her eyes and chuckled. Her slender index finger tapped lightly on the table. It was as if she was waiting for something. After that, before Mr. Qian could speak, 4 or 5 uniformed personnel suddenly rushed in. Hello, who is Xianxia? Please follow us back to the Institute for Investigation. Chapter 44. Boss Qian was stunned by this situation. Looking for him? But he hadn't called the police yet. Looking for me? But I haven't contacted you yet, President Qian couldn't help but say. Hearing this, the investigator chuckled. Your son's matter has already caused such a big commotion. How long will it take for you to contact us? Wait, what do you mean by that? President Qian suddenly felt that something was wrong. Mrs. Qin also frowned and subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj. She still had a playful expression on her face. Mr. Qian, do you remember that your son's matter was also investigated by the police station last year? The investigator's eyes were filled with mockery. We didn't find any evidence of your son that time. But this time, the video of your son being a bully in school has spread on the school's Tieba forum. There are a total of 65 videos. Your son really doesn't do anything good in school. How is this possible? President Qian's face turned pale and his body froze. It's on the trending searches. Take a look for yourself on the way. The investigator looked at his watch. As his guardian, you should cooperate with the investigation now. It was indeed strange to talk about this matter. That trending search was ranked first after the top 3. Later, they wanted to take it down first to avoid aggravating the public's feelings, but the entire list was like a bug. They couldn't move it at all. As for the school's Tieba forum, they couldn't delete it even after contacting the administrator. This matter must have been caused by Xianxia provoking someone he shouldn't have. He had kicked an iron board. In those videos that were posted, only the images of the victims were mosaicked. Qian Qingjuan's face was so clear that it was difficult to deny. Comrade, is this really not a misunderstanding? My son's matter last year has already been closed. The investigator sneered, his eyes cold. Closed? That child is still lying in the hospital. You think you can get his life back just by compensating him with some money? Hearing this, President Qian's mind was in a mess. His gaze happened to sweep across Bei Yunj. His eyes were bloodshot as he said fiercely, You did it. Am I right? What nonsense are you talking about? Qin Lang's face was cold as he stood in front of Bei Yunj. Comrade, it's her. She's definitely the one who harmed my son. She sent my son to the hospital today. She should be the one to be arrested. Mr. Qian only had one son, and he doted on him a lot. How could he bear to see his son go to jail? When the investigator saw Bei Yunj, he couldn't help but frown. Was Xianxia crazy? How could a high school student have the ability to hack the entire internet? Classmate, was it you who sent Qian Qingjun to the hospital? The investigator picked one that was still possible. Bei Yunj's red lips curled up calmly. Qian Qingjuan's injuries were not serious. In fact, the most he would receive was financial compensation. However, just as everyone was still in a daze, another voice suddenly sounded from the door. Classmate Pei hit him because he wanted to help me. Bei Yunj's fingertips moved slightly, and her charming and bright eyes moved to Chu Zhixing, whose face was flushed because he had run over. Brat, do you know what you're talking about? President Qian's face darkened. Chu Zhixing gritted his teeth and took off his school uniform shirt in front of them. The boy's fair skin was full of frightening bruises. I'm not lying. Chu Zhixing's expression was stubborn, and his fists were clenched so tightly that they were trembling. This scene made Mrs. Qin's expression change. She couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj. Chapter 45. The emotions in her eyes were complicated, as if she didn't expect that she would wrongly accuse Bei Yunj. You two brats. President Qian seemed to have been forced into a corner and flew into a rage out of humiliation. President Qian, aren't you taking the Qin family too lightly? Qin Lang's gaze turned cold and threatening. President Qian's body stiffened. The Qin family was still not to be trifled with. As for Qin Mu's mother, she did not say anything after glancing at Qin Lang. The investigator asked the principal, "Principal, what do you think of the rest of the matter?" The principal quickly replied, Okay, sorry to trouble you." In the end, before President Qian left, his face was ashen as he glanced at Bei Yunj. When he saw her smiling red lips and waving at him, the taste of blood welled up in his throat. He was so angry that his brain swelled. After everyone left, Mrs. Qin pursed her lips and stood in front of Bei Yunj. "Why didn't you tell me clearly? You believed me just because I said so?" Bei Yunj looked at her calmly and chuckled. Mrs. Qin was stunned by her words. "If there's nothing else, I'll go back to the classroom." Before Bei Yunj walked out of the principal's office, she heard Mrs. Qin ask in a deep voice, "Are you not going home? My surname is not Qin. Where do you want me to go?" Bei Yunj's tone was lazy, but there was no smile in her eyes. In the long corridor, Chu Zhixing tidied up his school uniform and immediately chased after Bei Yunj. He followed behind her at a distance. And Bei Yunj did not turn her head. Then, just as Chu Zhixing was wondering why he had walked here, he saw Bei Yunj in front of him climb over the 2-meter-high wall and leave the school. Chu Zhixing? 10 minutes later, Chu Zhixing, who had tried to climb over the wall, ended up in failure. He returned to class dejectedly. Class 7. Isn't Qian Qingjuan's matter too big? I heard from someone I know that all the videos taken by Qian Qingjun have been released. And what's even more ruthless is that until now, our school's Tieba and the trending searches on the internet can't be removed. It's directly controlled by someone and there's a bug. Is it a hacker? It's so awesome. I don't know. Anyway, no matter who you provoke, you can't provoke a big shot in the computing field. Do you think it's a student from our school? What a joke. Cheng Zihuai is the one who does the most computer research in our school. With Cheng Zihuai's level, he can only be beaten up by such a god-level big shot. Chu Zhixing, who had just returned to the classroom, blinked. Bei Yunj's face inexplicably appeared in his mind. Could it be her? Chu Zhixing unconsciously clenched his fists. If he was really Bei Yunj, how long would it take for him to grow to that level? Outside the school, Bei Yunj leaned lazily against the wall, her posture unrestrained. Her eyes leisurely glanced at the trending topics, her fingertips jumping on the iPad screen. Not long after, unknowingly, the hot searches and the school's Tieba regained their order. When the bell rang, Bei Yunj's figure appeared in front of the students of Class 7. She threw the plastic bag in her hand onto Chu Zhixing's table and returned to her seat. This scene made Lu Yuanxi, who had not been in the mood to sleep all afternoon, frown. Even Chu Zhixing was stunned. After opening the plastic bag, he found 2 bottles of Dita wine. He lowered his head and his expression could not be seen clearly. "Thank you." Bei Yunj, who was sitting in front of Chu Zhixing, responded. She picked up her pen again and scribbled down the knowledge points of Year 2 physics. After Lu Yuanxi caught a glimpse of it, he suddenly felt a sense of crisis. Chapter 46. Then, just when the students next to him thought that Brother Lu would definitely show some concern for his new deskmate after waiting for so long, Brother Lu turned his head and took out a physics textbook from the back of the table. He then took out a piece of paper and a pen and quickly copied the physics punishment. If Bei Yunj handed in the punishment and he didn't even move a single word, he would definitely be torn apart by that old man. Everyone looked at their new deskmates. Until school ended, Bei Yunj was still resting her cheek on her hand as she slowly copied the notes. Lu Yuanxi couldn't help but ask, "Are you not going home?" His hands were numb from writing. Bei Yunj didn't even look up. "It's still early." Suddenly, classmate Pei, let me help you copy." Chu Zhixing mustered up his courage and asked. "No need." Bei Yunj's hand stopped, then he capped the pen and prepared to go back. Seeing this, Yuanxi also heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he didn't have to copy anymore. Aren't you going home? Bei Yunj suddenly asked Chu Zhixing, which made Yuanxi frown. Although this deskmate of his looked cold and arrogant and ignorant, wasn't he too soft-hearted? Chu Zhixing pursed his lips and looked at Bei Yunj, wanting to say something but hesitating. Then I'll leave first. Bei Yunj said this and prepared to leave. Classmate Pei, are you going home? Then I'll send you. Before Chu Zhixing could finish speaking, he heard Bei Yunj say lazily, I'm going to the bar. Do you want to come? Bei Yunj glanced at him and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. However, just as he walked to the school gate, he suddenly saw a familiar figure. The man was tall and handsome. The sleeves of his clean white shirt were rolled up to his elbows in a refined and elegant manner. His long, straight legs under his suit pants were so abstinent that it made one's imagination run wild. His pale-colored eyes scanned the surroundings lightly, but his gaze was as cold as the moon. The passers-by couldn't help but peek, but they didn't dare to go forward. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. Why was he here? Student Pei, what are you looking at? Chu Zhixing, who had made up his mind to catch up, couldn't help but ask when he saw Bei Yunj standing by the side of the road. However, before he could finish his question, Bei Yunj pulled him aside. He also hid behind a tree. Are you hiding from that person? Chu Zhixing was stunned for a while before he reacted. Bei Yunj responded absent-mindedly. However, she was thinking about how she was going to meet Yu Manran at the bar now. That's your brother? Chu Zhixing's gaze was pure. When he saw that Bei Yunj did not refute him, he cautiously said, Classmate Pei, since your brother is here, you should go home with him. Hearing this, a dark light flashed across Bei Yunj's eyes, and her red lips curled up slightly. She looked at him with her beautiful eyes and seemed to be in a difficult position. Actually, I haven't thought about how to face him yet. Did you quarrel with your brother? Chu Zhixing asked. No, I have a brother complex. Look at my brother's appearance. It's easy for me to lose control. Bei Yunj's cat-like clear eyes were lazy and frivolous. When the young and ignorant Chu Zhixing heard this, he was immediately petrified. Wait a minute, was this what he was imagining? Classmate Chu, can you help me ask him to go back first? Bei Yunj curled her lips. When I've thought it through, I'll go back immediately. What do you think? Chu Zhixing glanced at Bei Yunj and immediately mustered up his courage and made up his mind. He couldn't watch such an illogical thing happen with his own eyes. Chapter 47. Okay. Chu Zhixing straightened his back and walked towards Huashidu, who was waiting not far away. Well, when he got closer, Chu Zhixing inexplicably became terrified. Huashidu heard the commotion and glanced at him. At this moment, when Chu Zhixing saw Huashidu's face clearly, he almost thought that they were a couple. Student Pei's brother was too good-looking, wasn't he? What kind of godly looks was this? What's the matter? Huashidu put his phone back into his pocket and asked. I'm Bei Yunj's classmate. She said she's not around. Chu Zhixing's brain froze and he blurted out. These words made Huashidu's gaze deepen. He raised his eyes and looked at him. However, there was a hint of aggression in his nonchalant gaze. Is that so? Chu Zhixing, who had just reacted, was speechless. It was over. He was going to be beaten up. Actually, Chu Zhixing's little heart trembled slightly, but he did not forget to defend Bei Yunj. Actually, Student Pei didn't mean to not see you. After speaking, he lost his courage and said with a firm gaze, Student Pei is very kind. She doesn't want the two of you to get hurt. That's why she wants to calm down. These words made Huashidu take another look at Chu Zhixing. He smiled silently. Hurt each other? Student Pei's brother, you don't understand Student Pei's feelings for you. She really likes you. It's not the kind of love between family members. Chu Zhixing was immersed in his own world and felt more and more sincere. If you really like this sister, please take good care of her. As soon as he finished speaking, Huashidu roughly understood what was going on. After a while, he chuckled softly. Then the Huashidu put out the cigarette and threw it away indifferently. The corners of his upturned eyes were charming and his tone was playful and lazy. Where is she? I'll go and tell her now that she's actually adopted. Hearing this, Chu Zhixing's body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. In an instant his brain froze. Bei Yunj, who was standing behind the tree, kicked a small stone in boredom. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of her. Seeing this, Bei Yunj raised her head and was about to thank Chu Zhixing. However, she did not expect that the person she saw would be Huoshidu. She paused for 2 seconds before smiling brightly again. Brother, why are you here? The man's gaze fell on her unwaveringly. A short while later, Bei Yunj saw him leaning closer. The man's cold fingertips rubbed against her cheek in an ambiguous manner, and his thin red lips lifted slightly. His voice was seductive, as if it could stir the wind beside her ears. Come and feel Yunyun's feelings for her brother. Bei Yunj froze. Then he immediately realized that the matter just now might have been exposed. I was just playing with my classmates. Big brother, are you here to pick me up? Bei Yunj's eyes curved, but she quietly avoided eye contact. Huoshidu did not mind her small actions. He gently rubbed his fingers that were still warm. Okay. Was the little girl's face so soft? Big brother, actually, I have something on today. Bei Yunj had promised Yu Manran that he would give her a demo today. Huoshidu took in her obedient expression. His laughter was low and hoarse, but it made one's eardrums itch. Okay, then I'll send you there. Bei Yunj, ? In the end, Bei Yunj changed the location to a bookstore near the bar. Chapter 48. However, as soon as Bei Yunj entered, she regretted it. She looked up and saw Cheng Zihuai flipping through computer books. Cheng Zihuai was handsome and attracted the attention of many girls. When Bei Yunj saw him, she was about to leave when he noticed her. His gaze turned cold and his eyes were arrogant as he mocked her. Bei Yunj, I thought you knew your place. I didn't expect you to find me here. He was even more impressed with her stalking skills than before. Bei Yunj's eyes moved and she glanced at the police station opposite her. She dispelled the thought that had just risen in her mind. Bei Yunj was about to leave. However, Cheng Zihuai stepped forward to stop Bei Yunj and looked at her mockingly. Playing hard to get and creating a chance encounter? Bei Yunj, have you forgotten that you don't like to come to bookstores at all? This person had really put in a lot of effort to attract his attention. Bei Yunj restrained the impatience in her eyes and seemed to have thought of something as she chuckled. She looked up with a flirtatious gaze. Yes. Seeing Bei Yunj admit it so openly, Cheng Zihuai didn't know what to say for a moment. Suddenly, Bei Yunj's gaze turned to the door and the corners of her lips curled up. Who asked me to like the brother outside so much? Hearing this, Cheng Zihuai frowned, thinking that Bei Yunj was deliberately saying this for him to hear. Bei Yunj, you don't have to deliberately provoke me. His tone was cold and disdainful. Don't you know very well in your heart who I like? Bei Yunj looked at him calmly and raised her beautiful eyes slightly. Young Master Cheng, do I have to know what a piece of trash thinks? The original owner liked Cheng Zihuai and was willing to suffer a lot for him. But according to her temper, she could only send Cheng Zihuai to the junkyard and let him be a piece of trash. These words made Cheng Zihuai's face turn red. He gritted his teeth. Bei Yunj. Was this woman crazy? The things that she had done in the past 2 days were things that she had never dared to do before. If you have nothing to do in the future, look in the mirror more often. Bei Yunj said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes as he enjoyed his angry look. After saying this, she glanced at the time and walked directly to the coffee bar on the second floor of the bookstore. This scene made Cheng Zihuai angry, but he also remembered what Bei Yunj had said just now. It's all because I like the brother outside so much. He couldn't help but sneer. I want to see what kind of man is out there. With that, Cheng Zihuai turned around and walked out with a dark face. There were so many people coming and going on the road that it was dazzling. Just as Cheng Zihuai was mocking her in his heart and disdaining Bei Yunj's words, he suddenly saw a black Rolls-Royce. The man sat by the car window. His facial features were well defined, and his posture was lazy and carefree. He couldn't hide his elegance. Coincidentally, just as Ching Zuai's body stiffened, Huashidu seemed to have sensed his gaze. His casual gaze exuded a faint sense of oppression, making Ching Zihuai feel even more uncomfortable. Huashidu was the first to look away. It was obvious that he didn't take Ching Zihuai seriously. He just leaned back lazily, opened the cigarette box between his slender fingers, and lit a cigarette. Only then did Ching Zihuai react. He immediately turned his face away in a sorry state. For the first time, he felt inferior. Was this the man Bei Yunj was talking about? Impossible. How could Bei Yunj know such a man? Chapter 49. Cheng Zihuai dismissed this thought and told himself that it was just a coincidence that Bei Yunj was here. He took a deep breath and left the bookstore with a sullen expression. Meanwhile, Huashidu, who was sitting in the car, was obviously waiting for someone for the first time. He raised his eyebrows slightly and tugged at his tie impatiently. Who did this young lady meet? Why did they have to talk for so long? At the coffee bar on the second floor of the bookstore, Yuman Ran, who had walked in, felt strange. She thought that after she graduated from university, she would never appear in this place again. Miss Pei? Yuman Ran found Bei Yunj. This is a demo. Listen to it and start arranging if you think it's good. Bei Yunj handed the Bluetooth to her. Yuman Ran immediately took it. After listening to the demo for 40 to 50 seconds, surprise appeared in her eyes. She couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj. This girl who looked to be in her 20s was as good as those big shots who had won awards overseas. May I know who Miss Pei learned this from? Bei Yunj stopped what she was doing and returned to normal after a while. My grandfather. In her previous life, her grandfather was a famous musician both at home and abroad. However, he had taught her classical music. As for arranging pop music, she had learned it from a friend who was an artist. Yuman Ran was envious. Miss Pei's grandfather must be a gentle and kind person. Otherwise, how could he have taught you to be so outstanding? Bei Yunj looked up with interest and smiled faintly. Because there's a feather duster on our piano. Yuman Ran, it sounded like such a refined family, but why was it so down to earth? When Bei Yunj was young, she had always been unruly and unbridled. However, which elder could handle a good-looking and smart child? Especially a child like Bei Yunj who was bad and sweet-tongued. The terrible things she did always made Grandpa Pei so angry that his teeth itched, but he couldn't bear to really hit her. So, Yuman Ran had decided on this demo, but before he could chat with Bei Yunj's phone vibrated. Miss Yu, please go back first. Yunj, can I add you on WeChat? Yuman Ran asked a little embarrassedly. Sure. Bei Yunj reported a string of numbers and waited for Yuman Ran to leave before answering the phone in the aisle of the bookstore. Yunj, your grandfather's condition has improved a little. He will return to the old mansion this Friday. Mr. Qin added, Grandpa wants to see you. It could be said that the old man was determined to go back to the old house only to see Bei Yunj. Otherwise, he wouldn't cooperate with the treatment. This was because Grandpa Sheng had found out about Bei Yunj's hospitalization when he woke up. The old master was furious. Got it. I'll go. Bei Yunj said calmly and distantly. Mr. Qin seemed to be silent for a while. Jiao Jiao is going on a piano concert tour soon. The media will pay more attention to her family situation. Can you persuade your grandfather to let Jiao Jiao stay in the old mansion? Almost no one outside knew that as the eldest young lady of the Qin family, Qin Youjiao could only stay in a nearby hotel every time she returned to the old mansion. Because of that time, Mrs. Qin had reprimanded Bei Yunj for Qin Youjiao. The old master completely hated Qin Youjiao. Bei Yunj smirked and laughed recklessly. Do I look like someone easy to deal with? These words made Mr. Qin's expression darken and anger gathered in his chest. Do you know how much Jiao Jiao has lost when you came back? Chapter 50. Hearing this, Bei Yunj leaned against the wall leisurely and laughed. I don't want to know and don't make me unhappy. Otherwise, Grandpa will know whose biological father the head of that hospital is. Do you think Grandpa will chase Qin Yojiao away? Mr. Qin froze and anger gathered in his chest. Are you threatening me? He never thought that since when did Pei Yunj dare to resist him openly. Yes. If you don't want her to get lost, don't make me angry. Pei Yunj tilted her head lazily, her red lips curling up brightly and impudently. After leaving the bookstore, Pei Yunj looked up and saw the man by the car window. Her mood immediately improved. The 2 buttons on the handsome and dignified man's collar were unbuttoned. His fair and clean neckline followed the loose collar and fell into his sexy and muscular chest. His light gaze looked indifferent, but it was enough to make one's legs turn weak. Brother, my dear has fainted. When are you going to take responsibility? The bright and flamboyant girl had one hand on the window, her cat-like eyes shining as she rested her cheek on her hand and smiled. Hoshidu turned around and saw the little girl lying by the window like a cat doing evil. His magnetic voice sounded with a low chuckle. The man's slender hand scratched the girl's chin lazily. Ask it why it bumped into me the moment it saw me. Pei Yunja's chin was scratched twice. Even the ruthlessness in her eyes that had just been suppressed disappeared inexplicably. She returned to the front passenger seat and changed the topic. Brother, did you wait for a long time? 47 minutes. The man said carelessly. Pei Yunj fell silent. Fortunately, a call came in from the man's phone and the atmosphere was no longer silent. Hoshidu pressed the answer button, his tone indifferent. What's the matter? Master Du, you haven't been to the clubhouse for a few days. Are you coming today? I'm not free. Hoshidu's eyes were lazy and he did not feel guilty at all when he rejected her. What are you busy with? Master Du, let me tell you, the girls in the clubhouse are very pretty recently. Even if you don't touch them, you should at least come and take a look and relax. I'm picking up a little girl from school. With that said, Pei Yunj, who was beside him, glanced sideways at him and then turned to look out of the window. Her sudden obedient appearance made the man's thin lips curl up unconsciously. Even the noise in the earpiece didn't sound so annoying anymore. Master Du, isn't it a little boy? Shidu. He's not mine. Shidu's words made the person on the other end to the phone call. Master Du, although I'm not a good person, we still need to have the heart to protect the seedlings. He really didn't expect that Master Du, who usually didn't get involved with women, would do everything in their power to enter the Hua family. She hasn't even gone through puberty yet. She doesn't have any feminine charm at all. The things in your head are abnormal. You can change them as soon as possible. Hoshidu sneered and said indifferently. He smiled. So it's not what I thought. Master Du, come early. What trouble can a little girl have? The man let out a long laugh and said slowly, Don't worry. Little girls don't know their place. Pei Yunj turned to look at him. Chapter 51. Even Hoshidu did not notice that there was a hint of indulgence in his casual tone. Master Du, you can even take care of such a child? The person on the other end of the phone seemed to be in disbelief. It was not that he had never seen Master Du take care of a child. Every time he saw the young master of the Hua family working hard to use his short legs to catch up with the calm Hoshidu in front of him, his heart ached a little. At this moment, when Hoshidu heard this, his gaze swept over Pei Yunj unhurriedly. His gaze was fixed on her as his happy low laughter suddenly floated into her ears. His magnetic voice was lazy and sexy. It's a little overwhelming. Pei Yunj, she had a feeling that this man was not human. That night, Pei Yunj had just fallen asleep when she was woken up by the dream of the past. The girl's forehead was covered in sweat. The last trace of embarrassment disappeared from her deep eyes as she gradually woke up. A few minutes later, she still got out of bed and washed her face. She walked to Hoshidu's door and knocked. After a long while, the door opened. The man seemed to have just woken up. His cold eyes were filled with laziness. He was wearing a dark-colored nightgown. The half-open collar revealed his firm and sexy chest, and his belt was loosely tied. The man's Adam's apple moved. His voice was hoarse from waking up, and his eyes were deep. It was even more deadly than usual. Bei Yunj reacted and asked with a smile, "Brother, did you sleep well?" The man lifted his eyelids and his hoarse voice sounded. It was hopelessly sexy. "Are you planning to tell me that the air conditioner in your room is broken?" She had really met an expert. The girl in front of him was silent, as if she was planning to return to her room obediently. Hoshidu noticed that the girl's beautiful eyes were abnormally red. She no longer had her usual smile. He spoke again. "Can't sleep?" Bei Yunj was about to turn her head when she heard this. She looked up at him again. At this moment, Hoshidu suddenly remembered how Bei Yunj slept soundly on his lap last time. He seemed to understand. The corners of his thin red lips curled up as he deliberately teased her. "You can't sleep, so you came to me to play hooligan?" For a moment, Bei Yunj couldn't refute. Her beautiful eyes moved. Suddenly, Hoshidu said, "Try changing rooms with me?" Bei Yunj glanced at him subconsciously. When she came back to her senses, she nodded. Just as Bei Yunj was caught off guard, the man pinched her face frivolously. There was a hint of punishment in his tone. "You came to knock on my door dressed like this? Don't think that I don't bully you." The corners of his upturned eyes were seductive, and his nonchalant look made her blush even more. It was only when the man's eyes moved away indifferently and left his room that Bei Yunj finally realized what was going on. She glanced at her pajamas that she had forgotten to button properly. However, she only reached out and touched her chest. The corner of her lips curled up. Something really happened. When this man flirted with her, it was too intoxicating. After entering the room, Bei Yunj couldn't help but glance at the decorations around her. It was just like Hoshidu's style. It was simple and clean. There was even red wine on the table under the floor-to-ceiling glass window. It seemed to be used by men to help them sleep. Bei Yunj had just laid down on the bed when the original owner's faint, cold and pleasant scent invaded her senses from the dark gray pillow blanket. It was inexplicably reassuring. Not long after, Bei Yunj felt sleepy. But then, she didn't know which insensible person had called her in the wee hours of the morning. Chapter 52. Bei Yunj took a deep breath, suppressing the coldness in her eyes as she took the phone from the bedside table. "What's the matter?" Her slightly cold voice did not sound like she had a good temper. Inexplicably, Marcus, who was on the phone, felt frightened. "There's a young man in the same city as you recently. He's quite experienced and I want to find someone to guide him." "Miss Pei, aren't you short of money? Why don't you guide him?" Bei Yunj said coldly. "He's very rich. I wonder if you know him? He's the heir of the Chung Corporation, Cheng Zihuai." Marcus immediately explained and tried to please her. Of course, he did not care about this bit of money, but he knew that Bei Yunj was short of money. Anyway, regardless of whether she stayed in their research institute or not, the big boss could not be provoked. If he could please her, he would please her first. At this moment, Bei Yunj sneered when she heard this familiar name. She smirked and said in a mocking tone, "Let him wash up and sleep." With that said, Bei Yunj hung up the call. In another country, in the research institute, Marcus was perplexed. The big boss's temper was indeed hard to understand. "How is it? What did the big boss say?" The woman beside him could not suppress her excitement. "Big boss, let him wash up and sleep." Marcus's eyelid twitched. The woman was silent for a moment before she said, "Then forget it." Anyway, it was to find a chance for the big boss to give money. Marcus said worriedly. The big boss's tone just now didn't seem too good. But the woman froze. At this moment, the researcher at the table next to them chuckled. "In their country, it's midnight now." It was over. Marcus glared at him. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" The next day, Qin Yojiao was practicing the piano in the school's piano room. The smooth piano sound made people's mood gradually improve. After Qin Yojiao finished playing, Cheng Zihuai looked at her and asked with a smile, "Is this a new piece?" "Yes, how do you feel?" Qin Yojiao's eyes were filled with confidence. It had to be said that Qin Yojiao was very talented in this aspect. It was no wonder that people outside said that Qin Youjiao was a talented young pianist. It's very nice. Cheng Zihuai smiled and reached out to scratch her nose again. Zihuai, are you still unhappy because the people from the Foreign Research Institute didn't accept you? Qin Youjiao saw that there was still coldness in his eyes. The people from the Research Institute said that they have an external researcher in our city. I wanted him to take me, but he refused. Cheng Zihuai was a little cold and frustrated. He had never suffered any setbacks in the field of computing. Even the computer science teacher he hired thought that he would be able to shine in the future. However, the external researcher did not even give him a chance. Does it have to be him? Qin Youjiao's tone was arrogant as she snorted. What right does he have to look down on others? If he's the same age as you, Zihuai, his talent is definitely not as good as yours. I heard from the vice president that this external researcher is very impressive. Everyone in the institute treats him like a treasure. A dark and determined look flashed across Cheng Zihuai's eyes. I must make him accept me. Hearing this, Qin Youjiao said arrogantly. All right. However, Zihuai, when that person finds out about your talent, he will definitely regret not accepting you back then. The gloominess on Cheng Zihuai's face dissipated and he said with a smile, how's your relationship with your third brother recently? Chapter 53. A dark look flashed past Qin Youjiao's eyes as she smiled. It's all right. Cheng Zihuai asked, I heard that he came to school for Bei Yunj? Qin Youjiao clenched her fists a little, but pretended not to care and said, her parents' number is third brothers. These words made a trace of disgust flash past Cheng Zihuai's eyes. Did Bei Yunj want others to know about her relationship with the Qin family so much? Qin Youjiao looked at him and smiled arrogantly. Her tone was contemptuous. Don't worry, I'll let everyone know that the Qin family only has one irreplaceable Qin Youjiao. What could Bei Yunj do? She was lousy in every way and could only be a joke. At this thought, Qin Youjiao suddenly smirked and opened her social media app to post a status. Qin Youjiao, it's a new song, cute. Not long after she posted it. Some fans congratulated her and some even Qin Lang. Crush Qin Lang, our sister's tour is about to start. Promote it quickly. Sister is too good. She's omnipotent. Aren't you going to prove your nickname of the crazy sister doting demon? Doghead, crush Qin Lang. Ah, Jiao Jiao, look at me. I'm your third sister-in-law. The little princess of the Qin family is so prestigious. I'm so jealous. Seeing these comments, the corners of Qin Youjiao's lips curled up uncontrollably as her vanity was satisfied. A trace of ridicule flashed past her eyes. So what if she was his biological daughter? She was not presentable at all. At the training base. Brother Lang, look. You and your sister are on the trending searches again. The team member said excitedly. My sister? Hearing this, Qin Lang's eyes lit up and he snatched his phone away to open the trending searches. Hashtag Qin Lang, Qin Youjiao hashtag Qin Youjiao's piano tour hashtag and other terms were already in the top 10. However, when Qin Lang saw this name, his expression darkened. You're talking about her? His tone was not good. Hearing this, the team member was amused. Brother Lang, you have other sisters? Hearing this, Qin Lang wanted to say something but hesitated, his handsome expression turning even uglier. Actually, he had not mentioned Qin Youjiao much, but Qin Youjiao's piano tour had always been popular. Since he never intended to hide it, he didn't take it seriously even when it was exposed. But now, Qin Lang realized that what originally belonged to her had become Qin Youjiao's. Qin Lang's expression didn't look too good. He didn't explain to his team members either. Instead, he expressionlessly logged into the account that he had not logged in for 2 years. He glanced at the people who tagged him and couldn't help but chuckle. A short while later, the people who had been waiting for Qin Lang's response finally noticed his movements. However, after reading it, everyone felt that something was amiss. Crush Qin Lang. I really want to be blacklisted. Aggrieved. Image. JPG. The fan clicked on the screenshot of the chat. She realized that the nickname Qin Lang had given her was Gu. Qin Lang sent 2 messages in a row, but the other party did not respond. There were even red exclamation marks on the messages. A third brother was wrong. Burying her head and crying bitterly. JPG, the fans who saw this post immediately exploded. Who is Gur? Ha, who would have thought that Boss Lang would have such a day? Wait a minute, Qin Lang is this girl's third brother? But Qin Youjiao doesn't have a nickname. Everyone suddenly realized what was going on. However, not long after, Qin Lang's mother called and questioned Qin Lang with a sharp voice. Qin Lang, who told you to send that chat record? Qin Lang didn't care at all and said with a chuckle, they said that I dote on Qin Youjiao, so I have to clarify it. Chapter 54. I think you're crazy. Qin Lang, if you don't delete it for me, do you believe that I'll take Jiao Jiao away? Seeing that Mrs. Qin was so stubborn, Qin Lang frowned. Mom, do you not know who your biological daughter is? Mrs. Qin suppressed her anger. Qin Lang, if people find out that Bei Yunj is your younger sister, apart from embarrassing you, what good can happen? She smiled and said, Jiao Jiao has been outstanding in all aspects since she was young. She played the piano when she was 19 years old. Qin Lang, do you know that it's your blessing to have such a sister? Hearing this, Qin Lang's expression darkened. However, his heart wavered. It was not because he felt that Ge would be embarrassed, but he was also afraid that others would compare Ge to Qin Youjiao. He didn't want Ge to be criticized by so many people. After a long while, Qin Lang took a deep breath. Mom, you're the one who shouldn't mention this the most. Don't you have any responsibility for Ge becoming like this? You only know that Qin Youjiao wants to please you, but why don't you know that this originally belonged to Ge? She wouldn't have been like this. My responsibility? Mrs. Qin's elegant voice became sharp. Do you think I want to carry the wrong child? But why don't you think about it? I've doted on Jiao Jiao as my daughter for so many years. Now you're telling me that I've carried the wrong child? A girl I've never met is my daughter. How can I accept this? At the end of the day, you think that Ge can't compare to Qin Youjiao. Can she compare to her? She doesn't look like someone from our Qin family at all. She cheated in exams and caused trouble in school. She can only embarrass me and your father. Mrs. Qin mocked softly. I can't hurt Jiao Jiao's heart because of her. Qin Lang fell silent. Even if he heard these words, he felt a stab of pain. Not to mention Ge. He chuckled. Sure. Soon. Before Mrs. Qin could heave a sigh of relief, she heard Qin Lang say carelessly. You don't love her, but I do. I'll give Ge 10 times or 100 times how much you dote on Qin Youjiao and dote on her like a princess. Qin. Anger gathered in Mrs. Qin's eyes, but before she could finish speaking, the call was hung up. At the training base, Qin Lang looked at this post and thought for a long time before deleting it. He clicked on his follow list and unfollowed Qin Youjiao. This move made the fans confused. What's going on? What happened to Crush just now? F***CK, my husband's 12 followers have become 11. Who is so pitiful to be unfollowed by my husband? You might not believe it, but it seems to be Qin Youjiao. What? Qin Youjiao is unlocked? Why do I feel like this is even stranger? Is Qin Youjiao really the little princess of the Qin family? However, not long after the fans discussed, Qin Youjiao's fans started to flood the comments. Normal siblings, please don't read too much into it. The Qin family only has one little princess, Rabbit. You want to defame my Jiao Jiao just because of a screenshot? Besides Qin Youjiao, does the Qin family have any other daughters? Even if she does, she can't compare to our Jiao Jiao. Qin Lang smiled when he saw these messages. Jiao, your father. After saying that, Qin Lang started to pull Qin Youjiao's fans into a frenzy. Not long after, Qin Youjiao's fans, who had originally planned to post a few more comments, realized that they could not comment. Hengda High School. Brother Lu, you're amazing. With these dark circles under your eyes, did you go on a date with a young lady yesterday? Hearing this, Lu Yuanxi resisted the urge to scold someone and glanced at Bei Yunj coldly. Chapter 55. Hearing this, Lu Yuanxi resisted the urge to scold her and glanced coldly at Bei Yunj. If it weren't for this person, she would have finished copying in class yesterday. He wouldn't have had to write all night last night. Thinking of this, Lu Yuanxi was even more confused about Bei Yunj. She kicked over Ling Jiwei's desk in front of the dean of teaching and even sent Qian Qingjun to the hospital. She was unruly, but she copied the physics teacher's punishment seriously and diligently. Student Pei seemed to have become prettier recently. Hearing the voice behind him, Lu Yuanxi frowned. Why didn't he know that Chu Zhixing was so good at talking? However, when he turned his head impatiently and happened to meet the girl's side profile, he couldn't help but be stunned. Previously, he also knew that his new desk mate was very beautiful. However, there was a faint layer of red at the corners of her eyes, and she didn't look like someone to be trifled with. In the past 2 days, Bei Yunj's face was glowing, and her already bright eyes were even more languid. Suddenly, he heard the person next to him say without blushing, "Little Chu, you have to say something that others don't know." Lu Yuanxi, soon after class. The physics teacher received 2 neat copies of the punishment and was very gratified. He held a copy of the penalty slip in each hand and smiled. "Do you see this? Whether you're the school bully or the school belle, Zhao Yi will never miss a punishment." Lu Yuanxi, Bei Yunj. Teacher Zhao Yi had always been impartial, and everyone knew that. However, what surprised everyone this time was that Teacher Zhao Yi had actually chosen Bei Yunj as the class representative this semester. All along, Teacher Zhao Yi's class representative had always been the one with the highest score in the class. This made the girl who had been the physics class representative for a year and a half suddenly have a bad expression on her face. She looked at Bei Yunj again. After class, the girl walked up to Bei Yunj unhappily. Then, before the girl could see clearly, Bei Yunj stuffed the iPad back into the drawer. The girl suppressed the gloominess in her eyes and said with a fake smile, "Student Pei, if I have any physics questions in the future, can I ask you for advice?" In fact, everyone could roughly guess Bei Yunj's results. She came from the worst high school in the city. It was already good enough that she could keep up with their school's progress. How could she be a top student? She asked Bei Yunj this question. "What do you think?" Bei Yunj smirked and looked at her calmly. As to say, the girl's eyes met Bei Yunj's unconsciously and she immediately froze. It was as if all her thoughts were seen through. The girl to be. At this moment, Bei Yunj had already picked up the extracurricular book on the iPad. She laughed leisurely and walked out of the classroom. She did not have the time to waste on arguing with a high school student. After you to be. Ling to be to bei, to do the ling to do, ti to be to teat. She cheated in the exam and relied on her family to get into our class. When she enters society in the future, she won't even be able to climb into our circle. At the door, Bei Yunj found it troublesome to type, so she called Marcus directly. "Miss Pei, why are you calling me?" Marcus couldn't suppress his excitement. "Did you just say that you know the Medical Research Institute?" Chapter 56. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. How professional are they? They're definitely the best in the world. You'll know just by looking at their hairline, huh? Marcus touched his lush short hair and couldn't help but gloat. "Are there any neurologists?" Bei Yunj asked. The original owner's grandfather had an intracranial tumor. Although she was not the original owner, she was living in her place now, so she would naturally think of ways to make up for the original owner's regrets. Of course, the neurologists who won the highest medical award previously were from their research institute. With that said, Marcus could not help but ask, "However, that guy only performs 10 surgeries a year. No one can break his rule." But hearing this, Marcus said with a smile, "This guy is simply a lunatic. He's focused on research and doesn't like to repeat the same surgery." He then asked, "By the way, Miss Pei, you should know some medicine, right?" The paper Bei Yunj submitted that time had a lot of medical knowledge. Even the people from the Medical Research Institute next door felt that this was a ruthless person after reading it. I studied a little in university. Bei Yunj said with a smile. Can you help me send the thing I gave you last time to that neurologist's? This is a project that can be implemented. As long as he wants, I can send him the follow-up at any time. In her previous life, Bei Yunj had been influenced by physics and computing because of her mother since she was young. So when she was in the junior class, she majored in biomedical engineering. Using computer technology, she had developed a medical detection machine that was popularized by many hospitals. Marcus sucked in a breath of cold air and realized that he had really found a treasure. Send the follow-up at any time? Didn't this mean that the experiment had been successful? He calmed down. Okay, Miss Pei, don't worry. I'll pass it on for you. Thank you. Bei Yunj's lips curved. No need, it's my duty. Marcus was overjoyed that such a talent could be produced in the Computing Institute. Unfortunately, this big boss did not plan to emigrate. After the chat, Bei Yunj had just hung up the call and was about to leave when she bumped into Cheng Zihuai. Cheng Zihuai was here to look for Qin Youjiao and did not expect to bump into Bei Yunj in the corridor. He subconsciously glanced at the book in her hand. It was an English book about computers. Cheng Zihuai's cold eyes showed a hint of mockery. And she still said that she didn't deliberately play tricks on him? Bei Yunj knew that he was interested in computer science. If it wasn't for him, would she be able to understand such a difficult professional book? Bei Yunj, I can't even understand the book in your hand. Cheng Zihuai sneered and looked at her. Bei Yunj pursed his lips and sized up Cheng Zihuai with a faint smile. With this level of skill, he wanted her to guide him? Bei Yunj laughed. Is there a need to expose your IQ? Immediately, Cheng Zihuai's face darkened. No wonder the Qin family had always looked down on her. As the biological daughter of the Qin family, Bei Yunj was nothing compared to Yu Jiao. He only knew how to cheat. Cheng Zihuai's expression gradually returned to normal. He tidied up his sleeves and said coldly, Bei Yunj, no man will like your scheming methods. Bei Yunj had been found fault with by Cheng Zihuai several times and had long lost her patience. The corners of her lips suddenly curled up and she raised her eyes slightly. She was bright and arrogant. Methods? Are you worthy? Chapter 57. These words made Cheng Zihuai's expression darken and his gaze was so dark that he looked like he wanted to strangle Bei Yunj to death. Bei Yunj, don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you have the Qin family. He gritted his teeth and said. Bei Yunj snorted and hugged the book in her arms calmly as she asked slowly, Do I need the Qin family to be arrogant? The girl's eyes were eye-catching and beautiful, but they made people feel that she was impudent. These words made Cheng Zihuai's face turn red and he was speechless. It was only after Bei Yunj left that Cheng Zihuai took a deep breath to calm himself down. He looked at Bei Yunj's figure and ridicule and coldness gradually appeared in his eyes. Forget it, he didn't need to be calculative with such a person. Compared to Qin Youjiao, who had been nurtured to be talented and beautiful since she was young, Bei Yunj was indeed the shame of the Qin family. No wonder she was not doted on by the Qin family. For 2 days, Bei Yunj was perfecting the project and waiting for the neurologist's reply. Until Friday. Bei Yunj suddenly remembered that she had forgotten to tell that person about this. After class, Bei Yunj called Huashidu when there was no one around. In the Hua Corporation, the handsome and dignified man had just finished a meeting and the atmosphere in the meeting room was still tense and cold. It had to be said that every internal meeting of the Hua Corporation was like a trial. It was soul-stirring. After everyone had left, the man heard his phone vibrate and his cold, pale-colored eyes glanced at the caller ID on the screen before he picked up the phone and answered the call. He asked carelessly, Child, are you calling me during class? Class just ended. Bei Yunj said, Brother, I'm going home today. Go home? My grandfather just came back from the hospital. I plan to visit him. Sure. With that said, before Bei Yunj could hang up, Huashidu heard him ask again. All right, Yun, how were your results for the monthly exam? Bei Yunj was speechless. In the end, When she hung up the phone, it ended with Bei Yunj telling her that she had to study at home over the weekend. Huashidu, who was sitting in front of his desk, thought for a moment before calling Qinyu. Qin family's old residence. Before old Master Qin was brought back, Mother Qin had already changed into a dark purple cheongsam. She was dressed dignified and elegant as she waited. "Mom, when Grandpa comes back this time, will he be like before?" Hiding the unwillingness in her eyes, Qin Youjiao's fingers sank even deeper into her palms, clenching them so tightly that her fingers turned white. In the past, old Master Qin doted on her and treated her like his own granddaughter. However, ever since Bei Yunj returned, old Master Qin had been biased towards Bei Yunj. He even forbade her from living in the old mansion because of Bei Yunj. Thinking of how she could only stay in a nearby hotel every time she returned to the old mansion in the past 2 years, the jealousy and hatred in Qin Youjiao's heart grew stronger. How could Bei Yunj compare to her? She was clearly a trash. However, the old man was stubborn and valued blood relations very much. "Don't worry, Grandpa doted on you back then." Looking at Qin Youjiao's appearance, Mrs. Qin could not help but feel sorry for her. She immediately comforted her. "However, Grandpa cares more about blood relations. But as long as Jiao Jiao is filial, how can Grandpa be so heartless?" Hearing this, Qin Youjiao's tone was aggrieved. "Really? Mom, third brother doesn't seem to dote on me anymore. Will you?" "Silly child, you'll always be Mom's daughter." You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.